Good morning. Good morning, Becca. How is the removal going? Ooh, loud. We have to do dishes today because these are the last 2 cups. No, I didn't get the last 2. Is it all good or? You can go back to sleep, honey. You don't have to be awake. She was asleep and now, okay, she's going back to sleep. This is good. Very good. Apple cider vinegar dissolved it right out. Yes, exactly. Why is my phone going back to sleep? This is good. Very good. Apple cider vinegar dissolved it right out. Yes, exactly. Why is my phone not? I had to turn up the brightness because I literally couldn't see anything. No, you don't need any specific type. Like, technically, any vinegar will work. I just always recommend not using balsamic vinegar because I think it'll stain. But other than that, you can pretty much use anything. Apple cider vinegar definitely works. Yeah, it's just the like, acid of it or whatever just breaks everything down, you know? Good morning. Yes, it's a beautiful sound. I'm sorry that most days you don't get to experience it, but today you do, so that's a win, right? That's a win. How's everyone doing? We're past the halfway point of the week. It's almost the weekend, which means nothing to people like me, but some of you have regular jobs. I'm bummed because it was the other side. Babies. Wait, what? I missed something. Oh, the other side, the slime. Oh. What a bummer. Good morning, Avery. Good morning, Christy. Oh, I didn't understand that at first. This is what I get for naming things weird names. That was my bad. I caused that. Beans. Well, I'll have to make it again then, huh? Yes. Yes. How's everyone doing? Everyone feeling good? Feeling fine? Hello. I got notice that I'm going to post for a project that once I was in how's that gonna go down? The weather's finally tolerable. It is quite tolerable. I agree. Flower. You love flowers, but it's a different kind of flower that you've never had. I'm awake, that is what it is. Yep. You know, I get that. I get it. Yeah, silly. Wait, I missed something. There goes that. I didn't see, something must have been, what do you call it? Filtered. All breadcrumbs. Yes, breadcrumbs. Did anyone besides Liz have a chance to listen to the podcast yesterday? I haven't had a chance to listen yet. I'm going to hopefully listen today during one of your naps. I'll listen to Taylor on the podcast. I haven't listened yet, Roxy. I will listen later today when she takes a nap. I only get to listen to things when she's asleep, except, I don't know if any of you have done this. You guys can tell me if any of you have done this. We have started, and by we I mean she and I, have started listening to an audiobook series together. I believe that, Anya. We have started listening to an audiobook series together. We're listening to The Wild Robot because it's kid friendly. So when she's awake, sometimes I play that out loud and she and I listen to it and we talk about it together. How fun is that? Has anyone ever done that with their kid? I mean, I know she's a baby, but like, we're on book 2 now. We've already listened to book 1, and so far so good. It's kind of a fun little thing. I don't know if any of you have done that before, but I was sick of sitting in silence with her when we're doing stuff, like when I'm working in the slime room and things like that. So one day I was like, why do I only listen to things on headphones? Like some stuff I would listen to only on headphones. Good morning, Ray. But I was like, Wild Robot is kid friendly. So we listened to it aloud together, and now we're listening to book 2. It's a fun movie. I haven't seen the movie, but, you know, it felt like a kid-friendly enough thing to listen to with her. Hello, hello. You can go back to sleep. 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 You were sleeping so soundly, sleeping so soundly. Why don't we go back to sleep? Sleeping so soundly, sleeping so soundly. Why don't we go back to sleep? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sleep. I'm telling the kids that you gave me permission to sleep. Yeah, and go for it. I'm all in on that, Becca. It's just water, you see? We're washing the milk frother. We have to clean it. We can't have a dirty milk frother because then we can't have the frothed milk. And that would be sad for both mommy and daddy. Mostly mommy, but also daddy. But mom, my friends are here. I know. I finally got put on meds for being sick. Oh, good. That is good. You never want to be stuck sick for too long. Hey, Liz. I can't tell you all what it is, but Liz made us something very special yesterday that I will probably post today for you guys to see. Something special. Something special is coming. I lost my voice last Thursday. Oh no. Oh no. All right, let's go ahead and do this. There we go. All right. I think it's not handmade, it's computer made, Liz, but it's still, I mean, not Liz, Anya, but it's still cool. My sweet angel, you can't look. You can't look. You have to go back to sleep. You have to go back to sleep. Back to sleep, back to sleep, back to sleep. Back to sleep, back to sleep, back to sleep. Yay! Oh, Lord, what is wrong with me? So many things are wrong with me, it's true. Baby just wants to be a star every day, Sloth. You know that. You know that. All right, we're chugging along. Let's get my glasses. All right. Glasses. You can go back to sleep, honey. You really can. You really, really can. Okay. Let's see. Where are we? I think today's chapter is about Beauty and the Beast, so that's exciting. Let's find out. Yes. Okay. Chapter 10 is called, she just wants to look at phone. Mommy probably thinks you're talking to yourself. I know, right? That's true. She doesn't know there's anyone else in there. She will one day, and that will be Yeah, go back to sleep. You were sleeping so nicely. Yeah, back to sleep. We'll bounce. We'll bounce. We'll bounce, bounce, bounce. Okay. So, chapter 10 is called Controversy and the Beast. In 2015, I took my daughters to the premiere of Kenneth Branagh's Cinderella. Despite the success of Alice in Wonderland's live-action film and Maleficent, this was the first live-action Disney adaptation under the stewardship of the then Disney studio president, Sean Bailey, that truly floored me. There was something about that adaptation that felt not only magical, but familiar. Morning can't hear right now. Oh, exclusive cheesecakes, or cheese steaks. Wow, I read that backwards. But this one was distinctly special in its own right, not just a photocopy of the original animated film that it was based on. Word soon got back to me that based on the success of this film, Disney would be gearing up for another live-action adaptation, other live-action adaptations, including The Jungle Book, Aladdin, and Beauty and the Beast. I had already been involved in creating an animated classic, but I started to wonder what it might be like to reimagine one as a live-action film. For one thing, the idea of getting to marry two of my favorite mediums, musical theater and live-action films, was an immediate draw. For another thing, there was a distinct challenge and opportunity to taking a familiar role and breathing new life into it in unexpected ways. One day, I received a call that there was interest in me playing a role in the live-action remake of Beauty and the Beast that would be directed by legendary Bill Condon of Chicago and Dreamgirls fame. I loved Bill both professionally and personally. Years earlier, we started shooting an HBO pilot based loosely on the life of a mysterious entertainment blogger Nikki Fink, who was to be played by the great Diane Keaton. In that, I played a Brett Ratner type, which was a great deal of fun, but the project ultimately didn't see the light of day. Suffice to say, I desperately wanted to work with Bill on something, specifically a musical, given his street cred on other live-action musicals. Is anybody watching the demise of my throat? Anybody? Is anybody watching how my trachea is being assaulted? Assaulted. She wants to stick her fingers in my trachea. Yes, she thinks this is the off button. She said, shh, enough. Well, actually, I don't know who needs a trachea anyway, right? That's really funny, Stephanie. Actually, Becca, I don't know if she wants to shush me because sometimes she does this. And I think that is when she wants to shush me, when she literally puts her entire hand over my mouth. Sometimes she does that. So right now she's not doing that. So she's just doing one of these. Anyway. I thought the idea of doing a Bill Condon Beauty and the Beast would feature doing Beauty and the Beast feature would be just what the doctor ordered. The role that I had been hoping that they were calling me up for was Lumiere. After all, Be Our Guest is not only one of the all-time great songs in Disney history, but motion picture history. I was told, however, that they had already tapped Jean Dujardin, who had won an Oscar for The Artist and was certainly more French than I am. And it should not have come as a surprise that the role they wanted me to play was Gaston's unlovable sidekick, LeFou. LeFou, as anyone who has seen the original 1991 film, she just raspberried LeFou. She's trying to practice her DIY tracheotomy. Yes, well, I don't want a DIY tracheotomy. In fact, I don't want any tracheotomy. I know, sweetheart. Is Gaston's idiot lackey who gets bonked on the head and beaten repeatedly and who, much like his boss, is morally unforgivable. I asked to read the script, which was absolutely wonderful, but with regards to LeFou, what I got was essentially what I had remembered from the original film, down to the physical abuse he sustains and the desperate one-note adulation for his superior Gaston. I told them, unfortunately, there was not enough on the page to make the role interesting to me, but if they let me come and work on a complete reimagining of the character in collaboration with them, I would be keen to do so. Hey, Natasha, how are you, sweet girl? Let's see, what am I doing? I figured it was a long shot due to the time constraints of pre-production and the lack of desire to blow up one of the main characters months before production. But much to my surprise, however, they were completely game. Over the course of the next few sessions, Bill and I sat down and we built the character back up from scratch. And here is a picture of said character. Aw, thank you, Natasha. We're going to come see you probably today or tomorrow, depending on construction. They said they were going to be done by today, but they haven't even started the next segment of it yet. So the fact that they're going to finish today seems highly unlikely. Yeah, I got an email and they were like, we'll be done by the 14th. I was like, when's the next piece going to start, let alone be done? Yeah, it's beyond annoying. Anyway, let's keep going. The first difference that I discussed with Bill was that I was keen to make this version of LeFou less of a bumbling idiot. While animated films allow and in fact benefit from bonks, clunks, smacks, and pratfalls, the same doesn't quite land when a real grown man in a period wig is doing it. Therefore, we instead began exploring deeper and more sophisticated attributes to further dimensionalize LeFou. For example, I thought it might be interesting to make him more of a psychoanalyst and a counselor to Gaston, who, in this new draft, was now clearly suffering from war-related PTSD. In my mind, this new dynamic gave the relationship a different wrinkle from the original animated film. It also offered a unique way that would work better for the more fleshed-out version of these characters, subsequently providing a catalyst for the comedy. Along those same lines, we discussed LeFou's humor and that it should not come from idiocy, but from being well-versed and slightly more sophisticated than his partner in crime. This part I'm okay with. I don't love the change to Gaston, like, to kind of give him, I don't know. I don't think we should be forgiving Gaston's behavior, but the changes for LeFou, I'm kind of okay with. Honey, you gotta go sleepies. You're all you're doing right now is making mommy's shirt wetter and wetter, and it's not my favorite feeling. Really? Tell me more about that. I know. Oh, you want to tell a story? Go ahead. This is her new sound that she loves to make. Let's see if she'll do it. Hold on. Ba ba. Oh, hey Amanda, I didn't see you. You want to say ba 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 ba? Can you say ba 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 ba? She's smiling about it, but she's not doing it. You do a lot of talking for a chew toy. It's true. Look, see? You want to say it? Ba 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 ba. Secret husband swears that she said mama and dada. I don't think it's true, but he swears she has. You do a lot of talking for a chew toy. It's my 4th lip piercing of the week. Yeah, I mean, he claims that she's done it. All right, well, anyway, let's keep going. Rather than 2 bumbling idiots, it felt fresher to me to have one big bumbling idiot and a devoted servant who did everything in his power to make his friend feel and look smarter than he could possibly ever hope to be. The final and most significant change that I pitched, was that LeFou would have a redemption at the end of the film and ultimately break with Gaston. Bill, one of the most collaborative directors that I've ever worked with, was keen to do all of it, and so we dug in and we built LeFou that would hopefully stand in stark contrast to his counterpart from the animated film, and in many ways be surprising to the audience. Yes, indeed. One much more casual but ultimately seismic conversation that we had about the specific nature of LeFou's devotion to Gaston was in the course of our discussion. We tried to distinguish whether or not LeFou loved Gaston or was in love with Gaston. 2 very different ways to play the character. We ultimately landed on the side that LeFou was truly in awe of Gaston, and it was not driven by any sexual desire whatsoever, but rather a deep-seated love, appreciation, and belief in this person that he had served alongside in battle many years ago. go. Gaston was everything that LeFou wanted to be or thought he wanted to be, a macho version of what LeFou could never be. She wants to expand your skills with a new accent. Yes, indeed. I'm sorry, that was way more funny than it should be. Oh, I mean, you have to laugh, right, Brittany? I mean, like, you don't have to be sorry. It is funny because it is what it is. I can't do anything about it. What we never discussed, however, was focusing at all on LeFou's sexuality, which frankly was not a thing to really explore in one random comedic character in the film, or so I thought. And here is another photo. Let me see if I can make it bigger. Oh, I can. LeFou and Gaston, of course. And I think we're back asleep. 8:47. Yes. The 5 months of production were some of the most fun and thrilling that I've ever had as an artist. There's nothing like shooting a live action musical except perhaps doing a live musical on stage. The cast was exquisite from the top to bottom, with Emma Watson, Dan Stevens, Luke Evans, Kevin Kline, and myself as the primary live actors, as well as one of the greatest voiceover ensembles in history, including Sir Ian McKellen, Dame Emma Thompson, Ewan McGregor, who ultimately would take over the role of Lumiere, presumably because British is close enough to French, and Stanley Tucci, Audra McDonald, and Gugu, you know what? I'm not even going to butcher this person's name because it's not fair of me to do so. They all played the enchanted staff. Our first reading was one for the ages, featuring a flawless Emma Thompson taking the mic and singing through the iconic Beauty and the Beast ballad. Shortly thereafter, we recorded the music, thus fulfilling a lifelong goal of mine to work with EGOT legend Alan Menken, best known for his work on Beauty and the Beast, The Little Mermaid, and Aladdin. Alan and his amazing team truly let Luke Evans and me off leash and allowed us to do some insane things with the song Gaston, including letting me end with a silly riff about being illiterate. Our brilliant choreographer Anthony Vaslast then took what we had laid down on music tracks and worked with us to create a new dance that would pay homage to the original but be updated to reflect its new, slightly less physically abusive relationship between Gaston and myself. The dance would reflect more of an emphasis on inflating Gaston's ego as opposed to deflating LeFou's face. The song took the better part of a week to shoot, and Bill allowed us to sing live, thus giving him the option to top anything we had previously recorded. Working alongside Luke proved to be one of the greatest pairings of my career, creating an odd couple both in size, behavior, and personality. Every time he would zig, I would zag. And then here's a photo that I don't really understand. So, there's that. One thing that simply would not zag was my ability to ride a horse. Okay, well, now that makes more sense. While Luke had previously shot numerous films on horseback, the closest that I had ever been to a horse was at the South Florida track. I was given lessons at a ranch close to the studio and introduced to my horse for the film, Buddy, who was less of a buddy and more of an asshole. The first time I got on him, he literally threw me off, and I went crumbling to the ground, thankfully not hurting myself outside of the bruising of my ego. The staff couldn't even bother to help me. They were laughing so hard. One day on set, we were shooting the intro to the small provincial town that is Bell's Village. Luke and I were blocked to ride in on our horses, stop on our mark at the cobblestone entrance, and when the director called action, Luke and I entered the scene as scripted. Luke stopped on his mark with his horse. My horse, on the other hand, decided to gallop off past the cameras and past the crew into the catering area. We did the scene again, and this time the horse decided to go the other way, taking me back through the entrance and away from the village entirely. This went on all day, and I finally looked at Bill and said, "Please write me off this fucking horse." And so, in a subsequent scene in which Gaston and I are meant to ride off into the Beast's castle at night, I was initially supposed to be on horseback, but because my horse was a passive-aggressive dick, however, if you watch the film closely, I instead remained safely on the ground. And then, in the next shot, when the villagers take off, it's Luke and our fellow actors, and rather thin last-minute Josh Gad stunt double, horse rider taking off into the night. The cast was like family to me. Emma Watson soon became like a little sister, and I was in awe of how she handled the pressure of the film essentially riding on her back, always asking the right questions and attempting every step of the way to ensure that her Belle was a forward-thinking and active person in the story as possible, not simply being a damsel in distress. Emma is one of the smartest and most articulate actresses I've ever worked with, sometimes intimidatingly so. Her breadth of knowledge goes far beyond the world of film and speaks to a broader interest involving women's rights, education, equal opportunity, and poverty. I marveled at how a girl who had gotten her start as a superstar at such a young age could simultaneously balance the responsibility that she had as an artist with the responsibilities she had as a humanitarian. It's true, and I find Emma Watson to be absolutely lovely, both as a person and an activist and an actress, but I do not think that she was equipped to play Belle. Maybe I am too picky, and maybe I am too of my generation, but the idea that someone who so badly needs and was not given auto-tune would play a character like Belle in an iconic score like Beauty and the Beast, which is a Tony and Academy Award winning score, her voice did not stand up to the score. And again, I know I'm picky, right? And I know that a lot of people, and I love her. This is not me saying that Emma Watson is not good at most things, but nobody is good at everything. And Emma Watson is not a good Disney voice for singing. Hey, Kathleen. And not everybody thought that, and that's fine. But if you listen to any of the people, and there are many of them, who have played Belle over the years, it's a problem. Yes, there are many people who could have played that character, and honestly, I'm gonna say something controversial. I would have been fine if they had gone the My Fair Lady route. If they really wanted Emma to play Belle because there's like a weight to having someone like Emma play a character like Belle, I would have been okay with them dubbing her voice with a different singer, the way they did with Marni Nixon. I'm okay with that. And I mean, I don't want them to hide it like they did with Marni Nixon. I want them to be upfront about it. But I think that would be better than having it fall flat. And I mean flat in the literary music sense, like literal sense, not like emotionally fall flat. Because, hey Naisa, we're talking about the live action Beauty and the Beast and Emma Watson's performance. So anyway, everything that Josh Gad says about her here is true. You notice the one thing that he didn't say was that she was an impeccable singer, right? Because even he's not going to lie about it. And obviously I'm not putting words in his mouth, but he just listed a huge list of reasons why Emma is a shining star, and never once in that list did he say singer. I'm going to guess the reason why is she's not. And if I had to wager a bet, I'm not a betting person by nature, but if I had to put money on something, I would be willing to put $200 down right now to say that never again in Emma's career will she take a singing role. It is 2025 right now. She will probably be acting for many years. I am willing to bet she will never again accept a singing role, because it's just not her wheelhouse. They're too concerned with the stadium filling versus the role appropriate. Yes, I agree. And you know, it's hard, right? I'm gonna do something crazy here. What if? I can't be where we usually are by the counter because it's covered in construction stuff. That's okay, Becca, you don't need to. It's not really worth it, if I'm being honest. Okay, I'm gonna sit. Do you think she'll let me sit for a second? Oh, wow, it feels good to sit. Okay. My body was so tired yesterday. Anyway, I just wanted to put that out there. So, because like, if we talk about the movie and I ever say, oh, for Miles, he needs to see it. Okay, fine. That is what it is. I mean, I don't know why when you've got the perfect animated version, but I have to say, and this is going to sound bad, but as a general rule, I have not been a fan of the live action Disney movies. Same, Stephanie. Exact same. I have yet to come upon a live action remake that I really loved. He just yelled at you. That's a shame. Miles, don't yell at your mom. And other people really love a lot of them. You put both legs through one hole. Well, that would make them too small. I agree. Every day, Emma would ask me about a book that she had read, and every day I would have to make the choice either to lie to her and tell her that I indeed had read the complete works of Hanya Yiganara and Miguel de Cervantes, or I would bow my head in shame and admit that despite my near decade age advantage on her, I had apparently only read 1/4 of the books that Emma Watson has read. They are absolutely forcing them, Avery. I didn't like the Snow White. I haven't seen Snow White. The only thing I really liked about live action was the Beast songs. Yes, that being said, those songs were already like kind of in the thing. And then he tells you you're wrong and they aren't too small. That's very funny. Live action versions of my animated childhood movies are not favorite. Yes, that's what I'm saying. But even the ones that weren't, like Cinderella wasn't from our era, and I still was kind of like, meh. You know, I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. I also haven't seen Maleficent and those, and I've heard that those are pretty good. My sister said those were pretty good. But if you ever hear my husband, if he wakes up during this and starts talking about it as an artist, his opinion of the live action films is stark. He has a lot to say about the live action films versus the animated, and it wasn't from our era, but I watched it as a kid. Same, Brittany, same. But yeah, I do love Brandy Cinderella. I don't think the Brandy Cinderella counts as a live action remake though, does it? Because it's based on the musical, not the movie. That's different, isn't it? Because there's Cinderella, the animated film, there's Cinderella, the stage musical, and then there's the multiple Cinderellas that have been made based on the stage musical, which all are live action because the stage musical always was live. And then there's the animated film and the remake of the animated film. Isn't that two separate properties? I think it is, technically, because they're totally different music and storylines. I mean, the one basic Cinderella storyline is the same, but not really. Right? Am I crazy? I don't really put them in the same category. Anyway, let's keep going. If Emma was my little sister, Luke was my partner in crime, Dan was mischievous and a frat brother. Dan is seriously one of the funniest and driest personalities I've ever known. Making him laugh is the reward that keeps on giving because he's such a British sophisticate that I usually break him by being a crass American sod or twat, which I believe are both British for jackass. Dan had to wear the craziest shit that I've ever seen in my life, including jagged, stilted legs, like a weird circus clown, and an unbreathable mask, as the movie originally intended for the beast's face to be practically affected, which, to those of us who have seen it in action, is the stuff of nightmares. At night, after we all went home, poor Dan would have to stay and do motion capture, which basically involves the actor sitting perfectly still in a chair and doing all of his dialogue into a series of cameras with dots on his face. And then he would have to do exaggerated facial expressions, which would all eventually be augmented in a digital work intended to make his practical mask more lifelike in post. Eventually, the mask was completely replaced with CGI, which makes me sad because of all the work Dan did inside the mask. But it simultaneously makes me laugh my ass off because, as I always told him, he deserved to be punished for leaving Downton Abbey early and traumatizing all of us who fell in love with his character and had to watch him die violently on Christmas Day. Here is a picture of all of them together. It's the biggest picture we've gotten so far. As filming was ended, we started to learn the choreography for the final dance number at the ballroom. At rehearsal one day, our choreographer told me that he and Bill had an idea that I would have a brief, tiny dancing moment with another male celebrant, and I thought it was cheeky and described to me as a sweet, small moment that would just be there to allow for interpretation as people saw fit. Nothing more, nothing less. Again, because I was a side character, I didn't want to suddenly throw the weight of sexuality onto this character that no way drives the film. But the moment, as described to me, seemed harmless enough. It's a fun, blink and you'll miss it little beat as our fantastical story is coming to an end. We shot the sequence, we all felt great about it, and we wrapped things shortly thereafter. Around the time the movie was gearing up for its big promotional push, I got a phone call from Bill to tell me that the talking points should not include any references to LeFou's sexuality, which is perfectly fine with me because we had intentionally discussed not making his sexuality a thing to begin with. And then one day, as I was preparing to go out and promote the movie, my rightfully perplexed publicist, Melissa... I'm going to spell this name because Raubvogel, Raubvogel. I don't know. You can't put a B and then a V. That's not a thing my mouth can do. Bv. There's no vowel in between them. Bv. Okay, whatever. I don't know how to pronounce it. She sent me a quote from an interview with Condon that had just run in an LGBTQ magazine called Attitude. LeFou is somebody who on day one wants to be Gaston and on another day wants to kiss Gaston. He's confused about what he wants. He's somebody who's just realizing that he has these feelings, and Josh makes it something really subtle and delicious. And that's why it has payoff at the end, which I don't want to give away. But it's a nice, exclusively gay moment in a Disney movie. The quote, in and of itself, was delightful, beautiful, and perfect, but for those three fateful words. An exclusively gay moment? One doesn't need a master's degree in PR crisis to understand the potential fallout of saying the words exclusively gay and Disney in the same breath in a country defined by culture wars. I knew what would happen next even before the first of what would become a barrage of phone calls came my way. From the second I read that quote, I was very aware that the only thing moving forward that people would discuss was LeFou and Disney's first exclusively gay moment. I was baffled. Never once was the moment in this film described to me of having something to do with hang a lantern on and pat ourselves on the back for. In fact, if it had, I never would have agreed to do that seemingly sweet and innocuous moment. It was both too little and not enough to be anything more than it was, a fun little character moment open to interpretation. Had the audience defined it as a sweet, exclusively gay moment, I would have been delighted. But the second we point it out and seemingly congratulate ourselves, we invite hell and fury, an insane but predictable response to the moment, for the record. More than offending your regular cadre of trolls and bigots, however, I was mostly concerned that putting anything more onto this small moment was a disservice to those who had been waiting years for an actual gay representation in a film like this. And I, for one, certainly didn't feel like LeFou, who was the... I, for one, certainly didn't exactly feel like LeFou, who was, for the one queer community... Wait, what? Can I not read? Do I not know English? Let's find out. I, for one, certainly didn't exactly feel like LeFou, okay, that's what happened. My brain switched who and was who the queer community had been wistfully waiting for. I can't imagine that a pride celebration in honor of the somatic water-washed moment involving a quasi-villainous Disney sidekick dancing with a man for half a second does anything. I mean, if I were gay, I'm sure that I would be pissed. And then, on the other end of the equation, we had created a firestorm activating those looking for controversy to hang their hats on. They suddenly made LeFou and Beauty and the Beast a platform for their prejudice and hate. Raubvogel. Really? Wow. And the craziest part was that I, a straight man, was now the face of this controversy that I had only just learned about. Raubvogel. Hey, Tori. I called Bill and I asked him about it, and the poor guy felt awful, and he said that he felt was put on the spot when they asked him about it. And as a gay man giving an interview to a queer-focused magazine, he wanted to, and had every right to, share his pride in some form of representation in the film, and had simply blurted it out, and now he couldn't reel it back in. I completely understood, but nevertheless, I didn't quite know how to shoulder this enormous burden of being the one that now had to talk about this unexpected lightning rod of an issue. I had wanted the movie to speak for itself, and suddenly it was about everything but the movie and my performance. Everywhere I went, I was being questioned by every single outlet about that exclusively gay moment.
Nobody wanted to discuss anything else. Even my co-stars were pretty much all asked about this, primarily asked about this moment. The studio, and in particular Sean Bailey, Alan Horn, and Alan Bergman, all three of the all-time greats, were unbelievably supportive and allowed me the freedom to respond meaningfully and freely. What we all wanted, however, was to get the people to talk about the film. I would therefore try desperately in every interview to answer questions about the moment, but also redirect the conversation back to the movie itself whenever I could. No matter how hard I try to strike that balance, however, the conversation would inevitably turn back to the controversy. Everyone wanted to discuss the issue for being a broader conversation, and I was constrained because my job was simply to promote the film and try to avoid anything that would overtake the conversation. That soon changed, however, when things took an ugly turn. Uh-oh. Weeks before the release, word started trickling down that various regions, including Kuwait, Russia, Malaysia, and even a movie theater in Alabama, were banning the movie because of that half-a-second dance moment. The irony, of course, being that these same regions were apparently all in on a movie whose central concept is posited on the acceptance of literal bestiality, but two men dancing would be entirely unforgivable. I mean, ain't that the truth? I went from being baffled to just plain old fucking pissed. My sentiment went from avoidance to full-throated anger. It was no longer a silly story about a moment taken out of context, but it was now a catalyst for bigotry. And for me, that was a bridge too far. Certain censors were demanding that the moment be cut out of the film or they would refuse to show the movie. And once again, much to their credit, Disney took the position that those places demanding such action would not be catered to and would have either to show the film in its entirety or tell their eager audiences that they couldn't watch it because two jovial men dancing with each other for what amounts to an inhale of a breath is too much. The faux rage and fever pitch controversy, of course, predictably died down the second the movie was released, and everyone looked at each other and said, wait, that was it? That was what all the fuss was about? And in fact, some theaters literally had people standing and applauding to that moment, not to celebrate it as a monumental achievement, but rather to remind the haters that love and acceptance will always be more powerful than hate and close-mindedness. Oh, how I wish that were true, Josh. Oh, how I wish that were true. I remember being in one such theater and being absolutely awestruck at the communal celebration of the beat. I felt a sense of unexpected pride and joy that after all the negative hoopla and the movie's intended audience was not only fine with the moment, but they fully embraced it. Yeah, I want to live in Joshland too. They embraced it to the tune of $1.2 billion, crossing, at the time of its release, into one of the top 10 highest grossing films by the end of its run. Well then. What did I miss? I missed a message? About what? Oh, is it a message on Patreon? I didn't. Okay. All right. Well, if it's a message on Patreon, I'm down to 60. I'm getting real close to finishing. I only have 60 left to go. Hey. We're so close. Someone wanted you to see their message on the Patreon. That's what she means. Okay. Wow. Anya has like young person lingo that I can't keep up with. But yes, on the Patreon. I will look at it ASAP. Like I said, I'm down to 60 and I'm slowly, as quickly as possible, but slowly because of construction, making my way through all of that. You're not weird. I mean, only weird in the way that we all are and that we love and accept, but not like weird in any way that I don't accept. So, Okay, so it's only 9:10 and this chapter is only 20 minutes long. So, you know what that means, don't you? That means we get to read another chapter because someone's asleep. Okay, sorry, see, that was me being weird. Max is holding his hand weird. What are you holding? Air. Me too. This is me holding air for Max. Max? It's so heavy. Yes, that is an unfortunate thing with Patreon. If you re-message, it does send you to the end because it shows me things from oldest to newest. it sucks. But if it is an important message that has to do with something that broke or is missing, feel free to email me instead, and that will come to my phone. I can't see Patreon DMs on my phone, which is part of the problem, but I can see emails on my phone. So, yeah. Yeah. Teaches patience. I know. Patience is so lovely. Okay, let's read chapter 11. But wait, there's more. That's literally the name of the chapter. But wait, there's more. My career is similar to an Indonesian seismograph. Lots of peaks and valleys. That's okay. It's hot where you are still? Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Liz. Why don't you come visit me and then you can have nice weather? It's so odd that you can't see DMs on your phone because that's where I DM from. So I can see them, but I can't search them or do anything about them. So I have declined to open any DMs on my phone because I can't, like, so on the computer, I can leave something open and address it and deal with it. But if I open a message on my phone and it's not something that I can deal with from my phone, it disappears. And then there's nothing I can do about it. So rather than risking that I'm missing someone's stuff and not addressing it properly, I only do them from my computer because I know I can open a new tab and deal with whatever they need me to deal with right away. You know what I mean? Because, like, for example, let's say somebody has a missing package, right? I can't deal with it. So if they have a missing package and I open that message from my phone, I can't make them a new label and reship something when I'm on my phone, right? I have to be at my computer with a printer to be able to print them a new label, pack them a new order. But from the computer, I can print that label right away and it goes into my list of things to do. But if I have it on my phone, send myself another email saying, make Brittany a label, you know what I mean? And so it's just a waste because it's another step for no reason. All I'm doing is responding to you saying, okay, I'll do it eventually, you know what I mean? Which seems disingenuous because it's like, you know, I'm not doing it right then if I can't actually get to my computer, which again is locked in that room right there. The room is right there, but it's like got a zipper over it. I did sneak in there though, to get some stuff and to make that Taylor Swift sign. Well, locked, zippered, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, chapter 11, but wait, there's more. Oh, I already started this. Sorry. My career is similar to an Indonesian seismograph. Lots of peaks and valleys. I've done movies and have gone to the top because of the 20 highest grossing films of all time and movies that have barely broken single digits at the box office. I've done failed series that should have been hits based on the level of talent involved. I'm looking at you, 1600 Pen. And passed on series that went on to be modern day classics. I'm looking at you, Modern Family. Ooh, who do you think he was going to be in Modern Family? Do you think he was going to be Cam? Actually, I'm looking more at what my bank account would have looked like if I had taken Modern Family. Seriously. The truth is nobody ever knows what is going to work and what isn't, and if they tell you otherwise, they're lying to you. I've never once gone into a film, TV, or theater project thinking to myself, oh wow, this one's really bad, let's make it anyway. And there's always been some reason or other that I gravitated towards it, whether creative or otherwise. I have also learned over the course of my life that doing something strictly for money is a career killer and always backfires. Similarly, I have found that doing something that feels safe will oftentimes cause creative stagnation and can be equally disruptive to a career's longevity. You also never know what projects will become long after you're done with them. For instance, in some cases, movies that didn't necessarily light up at the box office will become cult classics, like The Wedding Ringer with Kevin Hart and Pixels with Adam Sandler. Both of those films did well enough at the box office, but it wasn't until they hit home video and digital that people really started to discover them in a big way. You guys remember home video? LOL. Similarly, on the TV side, shows that I thought would be instant hits because of the auspiciouses involved also only became beloved years after their cancellations. From the Billy Crystal FX series The Comedians to the king of social satire Armando Iannucci's follow-up to Veep, Avenue 5. The point is, there's no such thing as a sure thing. Well, almost no such thing. The first time I heard about the sequel to Frozen's phenomenon was when John Lasseter and Jennifer Lee invited me to do the 2015 Disney shareholder event in San Francisco. I had no clue why I was invited and was literally only minutes before I walked out on stage that John and Jen told me that Bob Iger would be announcing the film with me that day. In full disclosure, I was terrified by this news. Outside of The Rescuers Down Under and Fantasia 2000, The studio had never done a big screen sequel to one of its hits, and let's face it, neither of those films had lit up the box office. To make matters even harder, it was generally a foregone conclusion that musical sequels were a recipe for disaster. I'm sure none of you go to sleep at night listening to the cast recording of Bringing Back Birdie, Annie Warbucks, or The Best Little Whorehouse Goes Public. He's right. The batting average of original movie musical sequels is even worse. Sorry, Grease 2. Cruel. He guest starred in Modern Family. That's really funny. I saw a video of people at Blockbuster yesterday. Blockbuster? Blockbuster? I thought he was offered Cam. Yeah, that's what I figured. And he turned it down. I didn't know Blockbuster. I thought Blockbuster stopped existing. Am I crazy? I have a book that I've written 60,000 words on that is based on the premise that Blockbuster no longer exists. Have I written 60,000 words of lies? Anyway, here is a picture of, I don't know who is in this picture besides Josh. Maybe his brothers? I don't know. As much as I trusted Bobby and Kristen Anderson Lopez, I was not sure how they would contend with this apparent curse. And as for me, I felt like it was important to not simply rehash the same traits and comedic elements from the first movie. I'd been thinking a lot about my daughter's tearful plea at the dinner table when she was 4 years old that she didn't want to grow up, and I was very interested in the idea of Olaf growing up. If Olaf in the first Frozen film is a newborn, I was tickled by the idea of Olaf now being an inquisitive toddler. He'd be obsessed with learning everything that he could, collecting pieces of trivia along the way, even if a great deal of it was useless. And I sent my ideas to Jen and Chris Buck, and they were thrilled with that direction. Over the course of the next few months, the creatives literally sat down with a shrink and tried to get under the hood of the central characters, a lot of which is detailed at great length in the incredible behind-the-scenes Frozen 2 documentary on Disney Plus, Into the Unknown, Making Frozen 2. I've not watched that. Oh, bye. See you later, Naisa. But I would watch it because I love a making of Disney documentary. Speaking of making of Disney documentaries, if you have never watched Waking Sleeping Beauty on Disney Plus, if you have Disney Plus, I highly recommend that documentary. It is a documentary about the Disney Renaissance of the late 80s and early 90s, which is what most of us grew up on. It was franchise owned by corporate ones that are closed. Oh, I see. Oh, okay. And when the film originally came out, I actually went to the premiere in New York. I don't remember how I even got tickets to it, but there was a talk back with the guys who made the film, and now it's on Disney Plus. But it's a beautiful documentary, beautiful. And the fact that those guys who were really young at the time when the movies were being made had the foresight to take an old film camera and film what was going on the way that we all do on our phones these days, before phones even existed, is a testament to their genius, because they have footage of everything from back then, like crazy stuff, like down to them standing at the door like you would with a cup on your parents' door when you were a kid or whatever like that, trying to hear in, while Alan Menken and Howard Ashman were on the other side of the door writing Under the Sea. You know what I mean? Like, it's stuff like that. Like, that is a moment in history that they captured on film, never knowing what that song would become. You know what I mean? Like, how beautiful. It's kind of part of why I guess I record so much. It's like you never know which thing is going to be something, you know? It's interesting. It's really interesting. But yeah. It's called Waking Sleeping Beauty. Waking Sleeping Beauty. The icon is, or the art is a castle. Actually, somewhere in storage I have a poster of that because they gave them out that day at the premiere. But it's a really beautiful film. Great documentary. Highly, highly recommend it. And it can be watched with the whole family. It's a clean documentary. So, Hi, January. And you can watch it with everybody together. I highly recommend it as like a fun night. Little kids probably won't like it, but like, you know, older kids might find it interesting, especially if they're into art in any way. I watched it with my husband recently and he was like, this is cool, you know? Okay, anyway, let's keep going. The first track that I laid down for the sequel was a song that was ultimately cut from the movie called Unmeltable Me, in which Olaf attends a fancy state dinner in honor of Elsa and sings about the virtues of being unmeltable. The song was both meant to help explain why Olaf no longer had flurries over his head and also set up the unthinkable tragedy that would eventually occur at the end of the second act. The song itself, which you can hear on the Frozen 2 Deluxe soundtrack, is a keen example of early development process on films like this. It was the product of a story still finding itself, driven more by a need to advance the plot rather than giving insight to the character in his or her state or mind. Quick, funny side note. At the time, the only thing that I had fully recorded for the movie was this insane little number, and I remember running into one of Disney Animation folks while I was getting coffee one day and saying, "Hey, how's Frozen 2 looking?" And he responded with, "Well, as usual, it's case in point at this process, it's a mess, and it's looking for some shape, but your song killed it." And I said, "Oh, that's awesome." And he said, "Yeah, but just so you know, the song's been cut, so have a great day." Dish Network owns the trademark for Blockbuster and continues to license it without allocation. That's very interesting, Brittany. On a personal Dish Network of all places. Interesting. On a personal note, during the very early days of the film, none of us knew what the hell the movie was about. As with the original Frozen film, we weren't handed a draft of the script, but rather just given a basic summary by Chris, Jen, and producer Peter Del Vecchio of the major beats and the arcs for our character and the larger story. I remember back in those days, we had more of a villainous presence in the film. There was scary monster man in the forest with antlers named Gunnar Natura, and he was basically the leader of the Northundral. And he seems to be I need to prove I'm a human, so I'm going to stand up and prove I'm a human. I'm a human, yay! The bad guy. But it was revealed at the end was that King Runard, Anna and Elsa's grandfather, had stolen his magic and was impersonating him, leading to a confrontation with Elsa during the redefining transformation. The transformation, of course, is the only thing that remains through the final cut of the film. There was also a great deal of cool mythology and Scandinavian lore in the film, but all in all, I was, and as reading this back I still am, confused as hell. As with the first film, the cast never recorded with each other, but Kristen, Idina, Jonathan, and I would constantly call one another asking if anyone had any explanation for the movie, and not a single one of us could summarize what Frozen 2 was about, although, to be fair, that was the same with the first Frozen early on. The creatives do a very good job of keeping everything under lock and key and only giving us what they think we need to execute our roles. Yeah, no, I love research. I do. One thing that left no nuance, however, was the first scene that I ever recorded for the film. I got to the studio and Jen slow-rolled me into the day's material, and as I looked at the scene, the first thing that I saw was Olaf begins to flurry away. And I read further, Anna sobs, and Olaf looks to her for help. And I looked at Jen and I said, wait, whoa, are we... And with tears in her eyes, she nodded and said, yes. Wait, what? Olaf, the lovable, huggable snowman, was gonna die? A plot point that had coincidentally never been shared with me prior to this recording. Side note from the author. That would be like Mark Hamill showing up on set his first day and George Lucas being like, so I know I haven't had the chance to share this with you yet, but today you're going to be losing your lightsaber and your hand. Oh, and also Darth Vader, the big villain from the first film, he's your pops. And action. Jen and I started recording the dialogue and I couldn't get through it without sobbing. Those first recordings were brutal, and I remember feeling that we were doing something that was going to pack a serious punch. And at the time, I don't even remember fully knowing if the plan was to bring him back at the end, but the opportunity to force Anna out onto her own without the love and support of everyone that she had always relied on did feel right, profound, and necessary. So I was all in, even if it meant that I might never get to play that little guy again. By the end of the recording, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. I remember getting a FaceTime call from my wife during the session, and her response to seeing my puffy and red eyes was, Jesus, what the hell are they doing to you over there? She couldn't tell if we were recording a sequel to Frozen or Sophie's Choice. Over the course of the next few months, I would come in and out of the studio while working on other projects, also recording all the way in London and Australia. Because I was coming in and out, I truly had no grasp of what we were doing and felt super discombobulated. The first time I knew we still had a long road ahead was when I asked Jen how the first test screening was going, and Jen is many incredible things, but a good liar is not one of them. She put on a brave face and she said, the adults loved it, but the kids were very confused and very, very sad. Uh-oh. Just for the context to this reader, when you're making a children's film, it's usually helpful if the kids leave happy and not with blankety-blank ideations. Apparently, one of the major issues was that Olaf's death scene was causing absolute havoc with younger viewers. They were apparently sobbing, screaming, and fully traumatized by the extended sequence and the tone of the scene. And it didn't help that in the first version, Olaf himself was scared and confused by what was happening, similar to Peter Parker turning flesh dust at the end of Infinity War. The scene was truly stunning, but in its commitment to the brutality of Olaf's naivete about all things, including dying, we had made our intended audience scared for Olaf rather than emotional. As Jen said to me, Bob Iger put it best. Olaf is a child. You can't just willy-nilly kill a scared child because the children watching will see themselves in him. And while there had been discussion about removing that moment entirely, Jen thankfully fought to do an altered version in which Olaf isn't scared, but instead is at peace and comforts Anna before he leaves. It was one of the light bulb moments and creatively brilliant plot points that pivoted Jen and the Frozen team, and they're known for that at this point. I almost think that they work better under duress than with a smooth production process. The truth is, animation is one of the only forms of visual art that allows you to do and redo again and again until you get it all right. In the live action film, you get reshoots here and there where you need them, but in animation, you get to simply redo an entire film if need be. For example, The Emperor's New Groove, originally known as Kingdom of the Sun, was initially a period drama involving the plot to capture the sun, with a ton of original music by Sting. With 18 months to go, Ratatouille was completely reimagined, and the new director, Brad Bird, used only 2 of the original lines of dialogue from the previous shoots, nearly completely rewriting a nearly complete version. In Toy Story 2, originally took place in Taiwan and was about getting Buzz recalled. Please give me that movie. The beauty of animation is that you can explore to fail and then succeed through the lessons of your failure. Through it all, I was also blown away that Jen was simultaneously writing and directing this movie, all while now running the entire animation studio after the departure of John Lasseter. As the story continues to progress, one of the sequences to come out of the story meetings was a moment which, in the earlier movie, Olaf is left alone in the enchanted forest. Bobby and Kristen had once again struck gold by writing a song in which Olaf is clueless about the unforgiving and dangerous magic of this new environment that he's in. The real comedy, however, was that the whole thing would also work as a metaphor for how innocent and wide-eyed optimists would look at the current world and its non-stop cycle of chaos and despair, and assume that he's just too naive to understand any of it. The song was supposed to be called When I'm Older, and in the dialogue leading up to the scene, Olaf is looking around for the cause of some of the eerie noises happening all around him. The scene is written out that Olaf calls out, Anna? Elsa? Sven? Hoping to get an answer back to assuage his fears. I think because I had literally gotten no sleep the night before after doing a night shoot, I was in a particularly unhinged mood. So I looked at Chris and Jen and I said, I'm going to try something. It's going to scare you and it's going to make no sense, but I want you to just go with me and see what happens. They looked at each other, terrified, and once again, I started the scene. Anna, Elsa, Sven, and then I paused and I said, Samantha? And then I started laughing my ass off and followed it up with, I don't even know a Samantha. It's one of our favorite lines, and he ad-libbed it, you guys. It's amazing to know. I was certain that the bit would ultimately be cut, seeing as Chris and Jen were seemingly laughing in the booth, not at the bit, but at the fact that I had apparently gone off the deep end. But to my shock and surprise, when I next came in to record the song with Bobby and Kristen, they both looked at me and said, by the way, Samantha is now not only in the film, but it got such a big laugh that we're adding a moment in which you look at a giant gaping cave during the number and once again shout, Samantha? And that is how the single most random bit in the Frozen franchise was born. The final thing that I ever recorded for the movie was literally 2 or 3 months before the release. The movie was still in a bit of a dense was still a bit dense on plot, and at that time an adult character was recapping some things for the audience, but it simply wasn't working. So someone pitched doing a funny recap instead of giving it to Olaf. Jen pitched me the idea and I loved it. The beauty of Olaf's comedy is that he can say very honest things without an edit button, and everyone forgives him for it because ultimately he is a child. Chris and Jen put me in the booth with the new dialogue, and they immediately regretted it. The initial dialogue was simply me doing 1 or 2 quick bits from the original film and then moving on. Olaf says, "I bet you're wondering who we are and why we're here. It's really quite simple. It began with 2 sisters, one born with magical powers and one born powerless, with their love of snow infinite." As we continued, however, I was more interested in the color commentary included, specifically around the parental loss. I quickly pivoted from the script and started to improvise. Well, at least they had their parents. And then I took a long beat and changed my tone from optimistic to horrified. "Their parents are dead!" As with most of my insane Frozen bits, I was certain that the studio was never going to go for it, but lo and behold, they did, and that last-minute recap became one of the biggest comedic highlights of both films. The joy of sitting in the theater and watching parents and children lose their mind at something that I never could have imagined making, the final cut, always gives me the greatest satisfaction of doing these films. My Frozen journey is so special because of the level of confidence the creative brain trust has given me, entrusting this beloved snowman to me regardless of where I take him, which is usually down an insane rabbit hole. After 3 years of hard work and development, we shared Frozen 2 with the world on November 19, 2019, almost 5 years to the day after we had given the world the first film. Somehow, the creative team had not only done it again, but the audience's reception somehow proved even more ecstatic. The movie became the highest grossing film in animation history at that time, surpassing even Frozen. The press tour for the film was also a true joy because it was the first time the cast and I had actually gotten to be together to celebrate the film. However, one of my clearest memories was flying to Disneyland together to light the Christmas tree. And we flew in a helicopter, all being slightly concerned with a sudden drop and very strange motor sound. We all silently looked at each other with dread and fear, wondering if this was about to be an inspiration for a modern-day take on La Bamba. Our deaths would probably have done wonders for the box office, but I think we're all pretty grateful that we didn't die on our way to light a Christmas tree in Anaheim. And here's a picture of them with the tree, Mickey and Minnie. On a separate stop, this time in London, Groff and I were out at a renowned gay nightclub in Charing Cross and watched as Idina brought down the house singing some of her most iconic songs. Groff and I, of course, joined her up on stage for Let It Go. Despite rarely recording these movies together, Menzel, Groff, Belle, and I truly formed a family at this point, and at the time of writing, we're chomping at the bit as we gear up to commence work on the next films in this beloved franchise, a journey that is bound to continue to explore the unknown and reveal new and exciting things about Anna, Elsa, Kristoff, and Olaf. And while I can't say much more than that, what I can say is, you ain't seen nothing yet. And here's another picture of them together. Very cute. And that's the end of that chapter. For everyone keeping track, we're at 84%, and we are on page 218. Tomorrow's chapter is apparently about murder. I didn't know that, but there we are. Yeah, great chapters today. Great chapters, I agree. So... Hi, good timing. Woke up right as mommy finished. Okay, good timing. You want to eat? She fell asleep, so I came back. I was literally going to ask you what percent we're at. 84%. Yes, good timing to ask it because I just looked. Okay, so there is a reason I recommended The Boys next. Oh, cool. So we already have our next couple of books, but maybe we can read The Boys for our next nonfiction when we get to another nonfiction. Sounds like a great book. Okay, so what was I going to say? I'm hoping to get into the slime room today. If I do, I'll be sending out the Taylor Swift slimes and more grab bags. If I don't, they'll go out tomorrow or Saturday. What else? It's pretty much the whole kit and caboodle. If they're done by this weekend, next week we can do Roll for Slime, which would be great. But that's pretty much it. So I'm going to go Oh, excuse me. You'll get it when we get there. Okay, perfect. Yeah, that is the whole thing. All right. See you later, guys.